In what way are vehicles being reimagined and redesigned for the future?
That's a great question. It depends on where the reimagining takes place. I recently came back from China speaking at a conference about the future of user experience, and it was really fascinating to hear some of the use cases that they have there, which we don't get to see so much in Europe or the US, particularly around the third space. There's a lot of people living in China, and space is scarce and it's prime real estate. So it's really the third living space, the third living room that people are using for singing and karaoke, hanging out after work, decompressing, even sleeping. So there's a lot of weekend trips away, or just people are doing a funny, colorful way of camping in which everything takes place in the car, from eating to sleeping to hanging out. And I'm not talking about necessarily big camper vans as usual, but actually a sedan or an SUV. So cars are being reimagined in different ways, a little bit depending on, again, the little particularities of the market. You could say that the cars themselves will continue to be imagined as a box with four wheels, but the way the cars are being used or will be meant to be used is changing radically.
One of the things that I have been reading about is the software designed vehicles. And that's probably not a term that's new to you, but it was certainly a term that's new to me. Can you describe what a software designed vehicle is?
Yes, for sure. I think I can talk about it. Maybe looking at another industry, if you think of telecommunications, if you think of handset manufacturers, we've had a fair amount of transformation, especially since Apple launched the iPhone in 2007. So you remember that handsets were kind of like a boring thing before that. I say boring in terms of the features, what one could do with them. So we did have mobile web like this WAP, right? Pages and email was sort of like technically possible, but not quite doable. There were different form factors, but basically handsets were an extension of you just make a phone call, right, to talk to someone and maybe send an SMS. Like multimedia messages were expensive and slow, and you had limited amount of things. So what the iPhone did for the telecommunication industry was that it would reimagine what a phone was for and when a phone was useful in the context of not only traditional phone calls, but for really looking at maps, buying tickets for the cinema, hailing a taxi, doing your groceries, staying in touch. When it comes to software defined vehicles, it's a little bit like that. It's different, but it's a little bit like that. We're getting into a space in the development of the industry, or the maturity of the industry, in which cars are largely built on a hardware platform and a software platform. So you can think of cars as being more like a living product that evolves over time. So traditionally, when the car left the factory floor and you bought it, and that was it. That was the car. It had everything you had purchased and wished for, and you could do some aftermarket tweaking. But in terms of features and capabilities, what you bought was what you got. When it comes to software-defined vehicles, we are seeing how, for the first time, we can think of cars as an evolving platform for customer experience, where what you buy in the beginning is not just what you get over time, but a car that can be updated over the air, that can have continuous rollouts of new features and new services, and everything is basically built on top because it's software defined. So it's akin to software development and continuous iteration, as opposed to an industrial process that is mechanical and that is linear and it has an end stop and that it's complete per se.